Welcome. This is SME Unleashed. My name is Edwin Obonyo from Strathmore Centre for Value Investing.
Doctor. Please. Some of these things are earned.
They're earned.
Yes, it's not by age. You become Mister when you turn 18.
Yeah,
you do nothing else but grow up.
Yes. So one day I went somewhere, I came back with a doctorate. That's what's happened.
Oh, that's what happened.
Recently.
Yes. And congratulations to that.
I have my co-host,
Robert Yahweh from Strathmore University and a facilitator of the COMA program.
Then today we have a guest. Do we call him well distinguished?
We'll establish that.
What do we use? What's the term to
Exactly
this
that.
introduction?
He has listened to all our podcasts. He's highly distinguished.
Highly distinguished listener.
Yes.
Bwana Kibe.
Yes, name is Anthony Kibe. I serve as a CEO and co-founder of a company called Milvus Kenya. It's a digital transformation solutions company, but we're really here to talk about operational excellence, which is what I profess to be an expert in, or at least that's what people say that I do. That's my profession.
Yes. So operations excellence. So SBS is a program. It's called OPEX. So the short form is OPEX, but it's operations excellence. So perhaps you can start by introducing what is operations excellence. Why did SBS believe that they needed a program called that, and then pick it up from there.
But I thought he said he's a CEO and founder.
Yeah, but SBS.
So how does SBS get...
No, but he also runs it. We were told he was just academic
He didn't seem
director.
to mention it.
Oh,
So
there
I'm
you
wondering
go.
where...
Yes, okay. Well, in addition to that, I have I'm also a facilitator in the OPEX program, or Operation Excellence program, and SBS. That's the hat that I wear.
Yes. Yeah, because, we have to tie you to university.
Of course. And you'll explain that, I guess, in a roundabout way.
Okay, yes. No, it's just that we've been told that we must not have silos anymore
Absolutely.
at the institution. So it must be known that we cut across all schools and colleges.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, what's operations excellence in general?
That's a very good question. We get asked that all the time. And for me, who is a professional in that space, I get asked that a lot. But in the simple sense of it, it's really about the discipline of actually managing an organization, whether it's a profit organization or non-profit organization, in institution really. And it's the mindset that you bring towards managing that organization. And it's essentially about two things. When you say operational excellence, it actually means how effective you are in managing efficiency within the organization. Those two things. And in layman's terms, as I once asked, especially when you were having the course for operational excellence. So being effective is actually doing the right thing well, and being efficient is doing things well. Plain and simple. So that's a long short of it in terms of what operational excellence really stands for.
So, you talked about discipline. That's how you started.
Yes.
Saying discipline. Are we lacking discipline as companies? Discipline
This is where the English comes in.
Yeah,
So discipline being in the sense that it's a way, a theory, so to speak. And it's probably a good way to sort of start of how I even got into this field in the first place. Really started in academia, 34 years ago in my undergraduate. So that's what I studied. Studied entrepreneurship in Silicon Valley. And really, that's really where I got a chance to really understand the concept of the theory behind managing and driving institutions, organizations for that matter, whether it's a company. And so entrepreneurship in this particular case, was focused more specifically on the for-profit ventures. And, Silicon Valley is one of the best places where to actually have studied that. So really got to understand the concept of what an organization really is and what a company is. And this all theory is all based on, grounded on Peter Drucker's management theory. And his whole premise about what an organization is or a company is, it's to create a customer, ultimately. And the discipline and the theory and the practices of managing that organization. So really looking at the company as a distinct and separate part from the founders or the entrepreneurs managing the company. And so that was really the starting point to really understand the theory behind it. Then got a chance to practice that in an actual enter, a startup company, in this case, the biotech industry. And I think that particular industry is the one that sort of gave me the real understanding in terms of the discipline or that philosophy or practice of actually managing processes within an organization. So think about it. You have an idea or concept of a medical idea or intervention or solution. Those are basically features or specifications from a patient. And how do you translate that in a manufacturing environment into an actual product that eventually they will get? That's actually the processes to be able to manage and ensure that you consistently develop and manufacture that product in a safe and efficacious way. And, the biotech space is a very interesting one because products generally take 10 years from conceptualization to when you actually have a product in the market. It's a 10-year period. And that whole process, it is basically proving to regulators, in this case it was the FDA, in terms of how can you have processes consistently defined to develop a product, and you go through the different phases of that 10-year cycle before it actually gets out into the market. So that's really where I got a chance to really get to understand the operational excellence philosophy in terms of how to do things, or discipline in terms of how you do things to manage processes. So that is sort of the foundation from where I gained the practices, the management practices of operational excellence.
Okay. It's interesting. We always assume operations are about people in manufacturing.
Yes.
It's very rare that you'd hear somebody in a financial consulting firm talking about operational excellence.
That is true.
So do we have a misunderstanding of the need for efficiency, that it only has to be where there's a physical product at the other end?
I don't think so. And that's interesting. That's an interesting question because the first 10 years of my professional career was spent in the biotech space. And then after that, made the transition back to Kenya. And the space that I got involved in was primarily in the service sector. So banks, insurance companies, hospitals. And in that particular space, I was involved in actually helping companies define processes. And in many cases, many of them were pursuing ISO certification. And ISO is all about having processes defined and consistently maintained and developed and utilized in an organization, regardless of the type of organization one is, whether it is a service or product related. So the discipline is the same. I just think in the manufacturing space, because you have a physical, tangible product that you are moving, and the pace at which that happens is not the same as in a service environment. It is a much more fast-paced environment, and therefore you don't really get to appreciate that indeed the activities you're actually running are processing in and of themselves. Okay. That is really where the distinction comes in.
Okay. I'll just take us at a slight tangent.
Yeah.
You were in Silicon Valley, then you came back.
Correct.
And you were not deported by Trump.
Well,
that was way before Trump.
This was 20 years ago, so definitely Trump was not.
That was way before Trump.
Was not president. But yes, I was not deported. It was a conscious decision taken to come back home and get to explore what the environment had to offer. And more importantly, I felt that the skills that I had acquired, I really wanted to try something different, and where else to do that than at home.
Okay. How was the landing when you came back?
This was in 2004. So it was just 2 years after the Kibaki, coming in as president. And those first 2 years, I guess, was when there was a lot of euphoria in terms of things can actually be done. And there was a few of us who took that plunge to come back. And I would say it was a very interesting time because a lot of things were happening. A lot of companies were looking to try new things, new projects. And it was also the phase of, during that period of M-Pesa. That's when M-Pesa was sort of in the background. Fintech was just beginning to take off. So there was a lot of excitement really in terms of what was happening. So a lot of the work I was involved in at the time was around implementing ERPs, core banking platforms. So the embracing of technology to basically do new things and do things differently.
Okay.
So that's really what that process at that time was about. Very exciting.
Okay, welcome back, even though it's 20 years late. But
yes.
As you heard, the show is called SME Unleashed.
Yeah, SME Unleashed.
So what we're really looking at is how do we get the SMEs to embrace that level of excellence as well? So how do you see that being implemented at the SME level? And what is it that we need to change? And I like that you picked on words that we also love, like mindset.
Absolutely.
So that's what we believe is a core to why our SMEs are not graduating.
Yes.
It's more a mindset issue, and also that organizations were never set up for growth. They stumble into growth, and therefore the challenges. So how do you see us being able to get these SMEs to embrace the excellence of operations?
You've rightly said it, and I think having followed your show over the last few months,
Yes.
and the consistency part of it is in terms of it's the way I look at it. It's the foundation of operational excellence is mindset. But mindset about what? Mindset about the processes in the organization and the governance ultimately, because and that's why as Daktari has said, the mindset of the discipline. The discipline about it is how do you do things? So as a founder, what is your mindset really in terms of how am I going to run this company? What are the management practices? So the governance aspect is one, but on a day-to-day basis, you have a strategy, but how then do you execute that? It's the processes that you're going to run for that. And I like, I think it was Diana Moridi who was here, I think your last show when you're talking about that. As a founder or as a executive, you've already been defined in terms of how you should operate. The legal framework has already defined that this institution is a separate legal entity from you as the founder. So you've got to look at it as separate from yourself. And I think that is the mindset shift that I see, particularly for SMEs, is in many cases the business is synonymous with yourself. And the change or the divergence of that in terms of when you start seeing change in terms of the growth in the business, you look at it as separate from yourself. So I need to nurture this institution. And how do you do that? You need people to come and, run this organization with you. And you need to be able to have those processes which are repeatable to be able to provide a service day in, day out. So that's the first step. And I think once, executives embrace that it's a process of how you do things, then it sets the stage for him being able to scale that out to the next level. Because if you're going to grow, you're growing. It's you're scaling the processes. That's really what growth is. If you're going to add new customers, you're going to go to a new location. How do you then repeat that process in a different environment?
I guess the challenge here is we once did a study,
Yes.
And we found that most founders either have diploma, and then a few have degrees.
Yes.
So I guess the challenge here we're talking about is the knowledge gap, because what you've just talked about, some people don't know.
Yes.
When we talk about ensuring that there's that distinction between company and individual,
Yes.
they've not been in a formal training of some sorts. So I guess for us, the question becomes, or for you, is how do we start getting them there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the program that you're running right now, the different cohorts that you had with the support from ABSA is testament to that. It has to be taught. Yeah, I'll give an example. Going back to my first experience, in Silicon Valley for this company in biotech. The interesting thing about the biotech is that at the initial stages, the companies are really working with startups just like themselves or smaller companies. And in many cases, what I found interesting was that particularly on the precision engineering side of things, many of them were family businesses, maybe first or second generation, some or even third generation. And particularly for the ones which were second, third generation, the level of education was exactly as you're saying. Many of them had not had formal schooling in the sense that, they had university degrees. They were craftsmen, and this was probably passed down from generation to generation. But in order for that craft to be transmitted to the next generation, it was about processes. So they were doing it by observing, probably not formally calling it that, we have processes, but there's a certain way that they were doing things by observation, and eventually that got replicated. But because the environment was already reinforcing that, that becomes the bare minimum that anybody coming in needs to operate. In our environment, it's a bit different. Entrepreneurship as a way of life is new. I mean, it's only since independence.
60 years.
Not just 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
So, and even that, we were not more running the business, we were more employers. And, we are not maybe tradespeople for that matter. But Now, when you're looking at growing the business and passing it down from one generation to the next, how do you do that? Those are things that we need to be taught and teach one another. So I think what you're doing is part of that process to be inculcated that one, it's a discipline, that this organization is separate from yourself. And if you listen to some of the the examples that you give of how these organizations run and the experiences that you have with the founders, they can't separate from themselves from the business. So that's something that has to be taught and reinforced.
I think to me, a good takeaway there is it's not that they're not doing it.
Yes.
Is that they don't know it has a name. So more of what we really need to do is, one, get them to write down exactly what they do.
Exactly.
Then give them the names to what it is that they do.
Absolutely.
When you say names, what do you mean?
It's names. It's, for example, he wakes up in the morning, he's got somebody who is responsible for making sure they open the office, they clean the desks, they power the machine, they do what. So the process is there.
Absolutely.
And they know what they need to do. They've told the person. Maybe they've not documented it, but they have sat with the person and given them there.
Yeah.
It's now for us to go in and ask the person, okay, fine, you already got this operational activity going on. How do we document it?
Correct.
Then how do we see how we can improve it? Maybe you've got duplications.
Absolutely.
And I think that would then make it less intimidating for who we identified as the average SME owner.
Exactly. And that's a good point. So, and to your point, so it's not necessarily we're teaching them that you have to do this. They're already doing it.
Yes.
What you're teaching is that there's a theory and there's a practice behind what they're doing. That's, I think, the distinction part of it. And I'll give you another example for that. So one of the cohorts that we had was in the managed healthcare business. We had companies who are primarily in the healthcare space. They were either managing clinics, and we had about 3 individuals who are CEOs or COOs managing clinics. One had 4 or 5 clinics he was managing, the other one had 3, and I think the other person had 2 clinics. But the interesting thing about it was that all 3 of them were probably on the 3rd or 4th iteration of a system, an automated system that they were using to manage the organization. And they were not seeing that it's a problem that if it didn't work, you throw it out, move on to the next one. And that seemed to have been okay. And they were saying, no, it's not okay, because from a resource perspective, financial and otherwise, it's a waste.
Yes.
So it's basically then saying, but there's a thinking or a way of how you can do things, because automation is an enabler.
Yes.
Technology is an enabler and will always be an enabler. So if you bring in a solution and if you automate a process that is not efficient, you're just automating inefficiency and you replicate that. And it basically magnifies it, because suddenly it is separate from you. So you can see it independent of what you're doing. And so once you start having that conversation with them and basically then saying that, okay, so what are your processes? Have you defined what those are before then you bring in a system to automate that? That seemed to have been a foreign concept. So it's not that they don't know that they need to use it, yes, but how do you go about it?
Yeah. I mean, we also have similar challenges,
Yes.
Especially me and Robert, for example. We know of a mechanic who had similar. So he had this mechanic shop, and he kept on also jumping from one
system to another.
He was actually asking Robert for which is the best, so that I can jump to that one also. And, because of not finding the sweet spot in their eyes. And I guess it comes down to that, which is really articulating and writing down what your processes are, and then looking for that.
Exactly.
The technology follows the documentation.
Absolutely.
You don't bring in the technology, then try to document it.
Absolutely.
And also I think you raised an interest, because we had the founder of Metropolitan Hospitals attend our breakfast and on mergers and acquisitions in the healthcare sector. And he gave us a very good insight, now that you're talking about healthcare. And he said when the PE came in, they looked at what he was doing and they told him, you actually run 3 businesses. And he was told, 1, you've built an ERP system for a hospital. That's a separate business. We don't want to invest in that.
Absolutely.
So he was forced now to cut that out, because he had, like we're saying, he just kept building based on his needs.
Absolutely.
Not understanding that over time, he had built something which had great value to many others.
Absolutely.
So he's actually rolled it off as a
B2B.
As a separate
business
as a
from the
separate
hospital.
business, absolutely, yes.
Yes. And I think the other thing he said is that I believe they're rebranding now from hospital to a wellness business. Because he also notices that within he literally runs a gym within for physiotherapy and the rest. It's literally a gym. He's got dietitians, he's got...
Absolutely.
And that's a separate.
Absolutely.
And so literally he was running 3 businesses as one. And he says the PE forced him to address the issues and create clear demarcations
Absolutely.
between the 3. And I believe that's, and you can imagine, this is now a doctor. So now we are not dealing with, this is a medical doctor. So we're not dealing only with people who...
Of discipline, you hear he's saying.
Who don't have a higher level of education. Generally, I think what we lack is many of us do not have education in business.
That is, you've hit the nail on the head. The same way, and that again goes back to your point, Dr. about the discipline, the theory behind it, is that there's a discipline and a theory in terms of becoming a medical doctor. There's certain subjects and theories that you study and that define who you are. Same thing applies for a business. There's a certain way of how a business should be run, what constitutes a business, and as you rightly point out, the interaction with investors. You know, if an investor is going to come in, and I've worked with many of them, with a lot of these private equity firms where we are brought in to help them evaluate the business processes as part of a technical assistance package where you're saying, we're giving you money, yes, but part of what we give you, you have to invest in your processes, even as you are developing your product or service to be able to do that, because they've identified that a specific need that that the organizations require to have the effective use of those funds that they've been provided with.
Okay. Now we know what to ask ABSA for.
So
This is part of it.
yeah.
Yes.
We are going for a short break. This is SME Unleashed. My name is Edwin Obonyo.
And I'm Robert Yahweh.
And Anthony Kibe.
We are back. My name is Edwin Obonyo from Strathmore Centre of Value Investing. This is SME Unleashed.
I'm Robert Yahweh from Strathmore University.
And then, of course, we have our distinguished guest today,
Anthony Kibe, Operations Excellence Practitioner.
Yes. So in this second session, we are focusing on actually now trying to help these SME founders put these processes in place. So I've gone for the training, be it OMP, be it COMA, be it EDP, and I'm back to my business. Because one of the biggest challenges we found, me especially as trainers, is sometimes it's very easy to go back to the bad habits. So you've learned, then everything goes out of the window. So they are interested in now starting putting on these processes. Where do they start? So this is a mechanic who has 10 employees, or this is a restaurant who has 6 employees. Where do they start?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you're already doing it. And I think the COMA program, the way it is structured, where you have the individuals come in outside the business every Thursday for the entire day. And was happy to hear that some of them have even continued that practice after finishing the program. That's part of it. The discipline and the practice of taking time off to work on the business as opposed to be in the business. And is to be consistent about it. So you're out of the business for that 1 week, one day in the week. And the question is, pick one process. And in many cases, it's the simple ones. You know, what are you struggling with? I'm not being paid fast enough. We're not selling fast enough. We're losing clients or customers. Pick one problem.
Gen Z are leaving.
Yes, whatever that is. Once a week, pick one problem. And if it means even staying away from the business, the same way you've been doing that last Thursday when you come for the COMA program, and analyze that problem. Why is it happening? And look at it from the activities and the underlying processes subject to that. And in Operation Excellence, we say that the first starting point is data. Do you have data? So if you're losing customers, how many have you lost in the last 1 month, 2 months?
Very many.
You may not also. What is many?
Or it's a feeling.
Or is it a feeling?
Yeah.
So, or even sometimes I'm surprised. Sometimes when you ask an entrepreneur, how many customers do you have? Like, actually, I don't know. As simple as that. So spend that day collecting that information, find out how many customers do I have, in what segments, and find a way to sort of categorize them and structure them to sort of understand them better. And yeah, that's just one of it.
So for our mechanic, we are telling them find how many SUVs, how many.
It could be as simple as how many. Okay, is he only focusing on SUVs? Who are those customers?
Saloon cars.
Because the mechanic sometimes, a car will probably come first thing in the morning, and he arrives and he's meeting the customer at the door. So he doesn't have time to even think about the business because he's straight into solving the customer's problem. And that will probably take you the whole day, maybe 3 days. So by consciously taking time away, you probably don't even go to the garage. The same way you've been coming to Strathmore for that 1 week for coma. Maybe stay home. At a quiet environment where you'll be able to understand and to analyze this information that you have collected. So what that is then building is the discipline of collecting information and seeing things separate from yourself. So that's one starting point.
Collecting the data.
Collect the data and understand one problem or pain point that is nagging you, and try and understand it from that point. And just continue that until it is solved. Go to the next one. And ideally, in many cases, you shouldn't be the one solving it by yourself.
Yes.
If you have a team, involve your team. So you're now inculcating the discipline of managing a team. Try even to identify, because maybe you ask that question and you actually realize, I don't have anybody who collects these information. Who am I going to assign that?
Yes.
Yeah. And in those conversations, you get to learn certain characteristics or traits about your staff that you never knew, because you never took the time to actually understand it.
I think you raised two issues. One is the question, how many customers do you have? Most SMEs have 5 customers. 4 who they know by name. Then the 5th one is called cash. Yes. That's usually their 5th customer, who they don't care much about. Yes. So I know one fellow used to do supply stationery. He's actually 2nd gen. So the father had run a stationery shop for years.
Yes.
So he shows up, come back from studying overseas, usual our Asian community, and he's told, now you finished the reading, now come back to the business. As we're not interested in what you studied. Sit behind there and start selling stationery. So while he's sitting there, he started noticing a fellow shows up like 2-3 times a day, comes and buys an A1 ream of paper and vanishes. Comes back again, buys another ream of paper and goes. So he asks the cashiers, the staff, sales staff, what's that guy's name? Say, we don't know. What does he do? No, he just comes, buys paper and goes away. So he goes and looks and he finds he's got a list of customers who are on credit terms. Average payment time, 90 days, plus 20% discount. This fellow who they don't know comes 3 times a day, pays cash. They don't know his name. So all he did was that. So told his staff, he put a coffee machine, and he said, when any of these guys come, give them some coffee, then give them the following form to fill so that we can open an account for them.
Yes.
6 months later, he wrote letters to all his credit customers, and he told them, your credit period is 15 days, no discount. Yeah. So the question is, we take it for granted that because the cash customer, your only relationship with them is cash, so you don't know them. And a lot of times when you tell an SME to go back and do this, it's scary.
Yes.
That their largest revenue and most profitable customer is unknown by name.
Absolutely.
So mindset becomes very critical. I like that current cohort, we have another mechanic.
Yeah.
And like I say, some of them are quick. He realized day one that his challenge was he was the business.
Yes.
And usually the first exercise we do is find out who picks your business phones. And usually in class, you ask them, fine, exchange numbers for your offices or exchange cards. Then say, whatever is written there as the office number, call it. Guess which phones ring?
The owners.
The ones in class.
The ones in class, absolutely.
The ones in class. Now, you run a business that turns over 100 million.
Yes.
Yet you're the receptionist. So the journey, like you're saying, needs to begin somewhere like there. For example, are you willing to let go
Absolutely.
of frontline, first level of interaction with your customer? And are you willing to put a system that will capture all of those engagements at inception. So like we're saying, when the fellow drives into the garage, it should not be the owner who is waiting.
Exactly.
It should be somebody else who, one, is not a mechanic.
Yes.
Like I say, so that they can't fix anything. First thing is to find out, have you been here before?
What service did we do for you?
If you did. If not, what's your name? What's your car? What's the year of manufacture? Blah, blah. Just collect some. Then after that, hand them over to a mechanic. And I believe that's where we need to start. The little things that don't seem too important, but are very critical.
Exactly. And it is basically presenting the non-obvious to them.
Yes.
I'll give you another example. So during one of the cohorts we had, we always ask questions. So what is the one problem you would want to solve by the time you leave here, as you flight leave? So this lady stands up and says that, I want to solve my sales problem. Okay, so what's the problem? My sales team are not hitting their targets. You know, I know the economy is not doing well. I said, okay, no, but you've said it's, so how many salespeople do you have? 6. So what they sell queen cakes, cakes. It's a bakery.
Yes.
And so she basically she had hired 6 salespeople. They've been in the business for about maybe 7-8 months. And so I asked, okay, so what is your typical day of teams in terms of selling? No, they just come to the office and they collect the samples and they go to the field. That's it? Yes. So do you have a target for them? Yes, actually, yes, I have. It should be selling about 50,000 per month. That's the target. What was the basis of the 50,000? So you have 50,000, the 6 of them. I want to do sales of 300,000. So she came up with a target. 300,000.
This is shillings or cakes?
Okay, shillings. Shillings.
Yeah.
300,000 shillings is what her target was. Get 6 salespeople, each a target of 50,000. Unleash them to the market. So we basically then say, let's break that down. What is the process of selling? What is the sales process? Like, no, but they have targets. No, what is the process? As in, how are you even going to evaluate one person from another? So the person, and what is each person bring? No, at a good day, someone will bring about maybe 20K. Others won't bring anything. But there's this one lady, she's consistently has been doing, she started out at 10, you can see 15, she's now doing consistently 22, 25K. And I can see she's well on. So she's the one I want to remove from the market to come and train. These are the ones who are not working. So you see, this is the higher salesperson she wants to stop.
Remove from the field.
Remove from the field. We'll bring the sales to now come and train this person. This person is not trained in terms of selling. So she's been asked, how do you sell? No.
Ongea na watu.
Ongea tu na watu. But it's understanding, it's her personality. She's very persistent. She follows through. And so she said, well, the way I started is, now it was her explaining what this lady was explaining, how she achieves her targets. I map out, she had been assigned the industrial area site. So I'd mapped out the different streets from Enterprise Road. Yes. And I would start from the beginning. Addis Ababa, all the way down. And I give myself a target within the first 3 days. I've hit at least until, I don't remember what
Dar es Salaam or Changamwe.
Then she would come back and start again by the 3rd day and continue the same by the end of the week. And in many cases, that's when she would come and she would be collecting.
Yes.
So you see, that's a typical sales process. You start broad, then it's the sales funnel approach. That's a process. And she had identified the ones who she had a rapport with and got an indication that they'll come back. She will Rudy Kesho. Because some of these people tell you, come back tomorrow. They just want to test you and see, are you going to come back?
Yes.
She came back. And because she came back, she was given an order. But were there other people doing that? Unlikely.
Okay.
So that's what we were saying is that why don't you take that process and duplicate it across everybody? So you're not removing this top salesperson from the field. Let's just replicate that across everybody else. Now that's operational excellence.
Wait, so had you highlighted the sales process to her? Did she see it that way?
She had not seen it that way.
Okay.
But when she was explaining what this salesperson was doing, I told her, but that's actually a sales process she's describing to you. Can you replicate that? Because then what seemed obvious, the obvious thing for her was remove her from the field and come and train these people. Why not keep her in the field and replicate what she's doing with the other 5 people? That's what was counterintuitive to her. So that's part of just being able to show that the business, there's a process, there's a way of how you do things. Selling, there's a way you sell. So it's not, you just don't leave it to chance that today they will sell, tomorrow they may not sell. But how do you then ensure if it, and you're basically using an example of what is working and replicating it.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. That's what we'd be teaching the different cohorts. And that was a learning from the rest of the cohorts in the room in terms of, by the way, actually, I've not thought of it that way. That's actually a sales process. And in fact, someone was saying, but then you document it. They are also beginning to give ideas that let's document it. So it's bringing that whole concept in terms of, let's go to the activities. Let's observe them. So we're not calling it operational excellence.
Yes.
but that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing.
So it's been labeled. The activity was going on.
Yes.
But had no label.
Yeah.
And also to say, to demonstrate that it's the process of repeating it, it's a discipline.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one, she's not collecting any data. So she does not know, is the person, what's the process?
Exactly.
And if she had done this from day one, then she'd realize this particular person did not start off with a very high turnover.
Correct.
But over time, she's improving.
Correct.
There might have been another one who started off at 30K or 50K day one because they
got a big order.
They got a big order suddenly. Maybe somebody was having a birthday or something. So there was, but it was not a repeatable.
Correct.
It's a 365-day cycle.
Absolutely.
So the next time they'll hit it will be another. And that I think says a lot about how we run our businesses. Internally, she had the resource.
Yes.
She just was not taking advantage of that resource. Then, interesting, what she wanted to do was to promote her best salesperson.
Yes.
Which is typical behavior.
Yes.
I believe this would be slightly digressional, but why do we have a challenge paying somebody who doesn't have a certain title well? That we feel that I need to move you from salesman to sales administrator so that I can pay you more. Why can't I just be willing to pay you more
to begin with?
and get you to do more of what you're good at, as opposed to, it's called promotion to levels of high and high incompetence.
What term is that you're using?
It basically says by the time you get to CEO, you're in the level of your highest incompetence. Because you started off as a doctor or an engineer. Now I'm suddenly turning you into an administrator. Because the only way I'll pay you the kind of money you want
It's to be an administrator.
is to turn you into an administrator.
Yes.
And then now you end up with a mediocre administrator and you lose
everything.
A very good, skilled technical person.
It's our training. It's our culture. That's how we've been cultured, and I think it starts from school. I think the example that I like giving is, when you're a prefect, well, there are either two ways: the most loudest, or the most in this or not disciplined, or the ones who are felt that were rabble rousers.
That was me. That's how I became deputy head boy.
There you go. Exactly. So it's
so
that's the culture. You're already acculturated to do to that to begin with. So I think it's part of our upbringing that it's, let's put you in a position of responsibility where we can manage that that activity that you have, that irresponsibility as you
that's for the responsible one. And then the other one
on a light note. But so it's the same way. So the fact that this person is performing well, so we're promoting you to come and teach what you're doing. But there are some individuals, maybe that's not what they want to do in the first place. They are comfortable doing what they are doing. And administration is a different skill set. That is why we're saying that, running and managing an organization, it's a practice. So it is recognizing that how I manage these organizations requires certain skills and a mindset to be able to do that. So the fact that you're good in sales may not necessarily mean you're a good administrator.
Yeah.
And so how then do you develop the skills of identify the right individuals to take up on that role? And now with technology, you probably don't even need the person. You can have the technology do it for you.
Actually, on that, what I'm looking at is maybe I think the challenge here would have been, would it have made, instead of her promoting that person, should she have brought an administrative task person into there? Because what we're looking at is most organizations are two-level: founder, everyone else. And the challenge we're having is, how do we get the founder to move up And the only way they can move up is if they create a level below them.
Correct.
Because there's this tendency of me wanting to now train the very good salesperson
Yes.
to become an administrator,
Yes.
as opposed to me getting an administrator
Yes.
who is their core competency is administration, and leaving my salesperson or my good mechanic where they are.
I think that's also something that needs to be taught. So in that particular case, an organization that's growing, you probably don't want to start loading it with too many admin resources, so to speak. So part of it is, how do you utilize your existing resources to do part of that? So perhaps out of the 6 salespeople they have, maybe one person is predisposed to doing admin work. So in
Yes.
addition to doing the admin work, she can still continue selling because you still need her out there to sell. So up until it reaches the point where the business can support the need for that administrator, that's when you bring them in. But in the meantime, and that's the whole point about entrepreneurship, is that the founder does, everything and should be comfortable doing the different aspects of it. And that's why you hear all these stories of, no matter how big the company gets, the founder still walks around the shop floor, still goes to visit clients. That's part of it. It's being able to keep in touch with what's happening in the business, but they're still working on the business.
Okay. We are going for another break. This is SME Unleashed. My name is Edwin Obonyo from Strathmore Centre for Value
How
Investing.
long will it take you to get comfortable with
No,
declaring?
Jesus Christ.
No. This is
Nobody
by,
already declared
it's
it in
by
the beginning.
association. Somebody might be joining the podcast at this point.
Yeah, but you've already declared it.
No,
in the
but
beginning.
they've not listened to the rest of it.
No, you can't keep on saying doctor
No.
all the time. It's also heavy.
We'll call it doctor.
Okay. I'm Robert Yawe, and the person who's just spoken before me is Dr. Edwin Obonyo.
I think maybe
Anthony
that.
Kibe here.
Yeah. So this is the final part of today's episode. This is SME Unleashed. My name is. Don't worry, I'm laughing because they've been insisting I say something. Anyway, my name is Edwin Obonyo from Strathmore Centre for Value Investing. PhD. Then I've added that. Are you happy now?
Okay. That's much better. Robert Yawe from Strathmore University and a facilitator for the SME of the comma program between Strathmore University in partnership with ABSA.
The words have gone out. Yes.
Good. Anthony Kibe, our Operation Excellence practitioner, but also a facilitator in the Operation Excellence program at Strathmore Business School.
Okay. So now we talked about training. They need to first get themselves to a point where they understand these things, they know. So the university has so many entrepreneurial programs across schools, EDP, OMP, and of course ours, comma. Now we've talked about operations excellence and you've given us examples in the second section. Now we want to go deeper into what operational excellence is and the course around it, and who should the founder come? Should they pick one person to come? Using the examples that we've talked about, the mechanic or the bakery, how do they go about that transition?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, for this first cohort, it was an interesting one because we had a mix. We had a mix of what I would call executives, people in senior management, as well as mid-management. We didn't have the founder one was in one of the OPEX programs within the special custom program. But for this particular one, it's an open one, basically, where we provide a very high-level overview in terms of what operational excellence is, the theory behind it, the discipline behind it, how does it fit in within the organization. And we then now focus on the individuals who are attending. And in this case, what are the specific challenges that they are facing? And we try to bring them to life from an operational excellence perspective. The objective really is that by the time they're done with, it's a week program, 4 days. And by the 4th day, the expectation is that you're leaving there with a specific knowledge of how to do things and how to solve problems within your organization. And so one of the first things that we start out with on day one is to basically just ask them what are the specific challenges that they're facing. And throughout the day, the 4 days, we use the different operational excellence concepts to bring to life or to demonstrate how they can actually solve those problems. And it was quite successful, at least from the feedback that we received from the first cohort. So the common denominator for this, for the management, is that they wanted their senior leadership to attend the course. So I guess that would probably be the second cohort in terms of maybe a bit more targeted. I'm having the senior managers in attending the course, and the interventions for that will probably be a bit different from someone who's on an operational level. But regardless of where they sit within the organization, the concept will be the same. Identify at a high level what operational excellence means, and then use specific examples within their specific organizations to actually solve a specific problem using operational excellence principles that we talk about in the course. So it's starting out by the theory behind it, because we started out by saying that there's a discipline, there's a way, a mindset of what operational excellence really is and how it fits in within the organization, and then bring the specific methodologies and the tools that can be applied. And throughout, we're using case studies and examples from academia, as well as real-life examples of the actual participants in the room to be able to do that. We try to make it as practical as possible.
Okay. Just on when they feel that senior management or their bosses should come for the session, is it that they feel they can't sell the concept to senior management, which to me would be another interesting challenge?
I think it's a bit of both, because on the one part, in terms of explaining operational excellence being a distinct discipline and way of doing things. So they feel that I probably may not be the right person to teach that. They feel they're not the experts to be able to do that. That's one of the reasons you're saying, no, what you've told me, please tell my boss, my boss that, so they can get to appreciate. So that's sort of the one aspect of it. But then secondly, one of the concepts that we discuss about what operational excellence is a support for organizational strategy. And that's why they felt that if they are going to be able to support the strategy effectively, it was important that their bosses, their management teams, appreciate that perspective, which they may or may not agree with from where they sit. So it was more from the perspective of, I want them to be able to appreciate the way you've articulated it for us. Please articulate it for them as well. And therefore, as I'm doing my work, then it's a less of a hassle, so to speak. And also, remember we started by saying it's a mindset. So I, as an individual, I may change my mindset in terms of what how I show up at the workplace. But if my boss does not appreciate that there's a change and they need to be able to support me to be able to achieve not just my objectives, but also objectives for the organization, then they may not be able to meet their objectives. So it's from those two perspectives.
I know you one of your units is on comma.
Yes.
Is on operations.
Yes.
So I think it makes, so for us, we are dealing with the founder.
Yeah, I mean, essentially it becomes now very important.
So then what we're telling the founder is pick your person.
Yeah.
Now that you understand the benefit of operational excellence, and drop them within your program. And that way then we already know we have eased the...
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
On this other end, as opposed to if we sent our founders to the program, then they're just adding more things within them instead of letting go and appreciating that this training will complement.
Absolutely.
And then they can actually have a conversation where the person is allowed, the new operations expert is allowed to sit on the table and show how they are able to participate in the bottom line and the strategy of the organization.
That's one side of it. So one of the other things that came out of this first cohort is that there are a couple of organizations that said, there are some, so we had about 30 individuals attending, but there are some who came as maybe 3, 4, 5 people from one organization.
Yes.
So some of them are saying, would like to have this as a custom program for our organization. Very similar to what Kenchik and Flamingo did for the organization. So in that particular case, they came with a specific objective to address 2 specific pain points that are facing within the organization.
Okay.
And so the CEOs or the executives came in on the first day to open up the session and to basically provide that support. But they essentially left it to the team to basically then say that by the time you leave here, whatever it is you come to us as management, we will support you based on the theory and the learning that you have received from that. So there are 2 perspectives. You can have one, the founder and maybe an individual who they will probably be responsible for that. But I think the most effective one is where you have a team effort for that, because you can use a specific challenge or pain point that they're facing within the organization. And you are essentially killing 2 birds with 1 stone. One, you're inculcating a new way of doing things across the organization at the same time while solving a problem that they're facing. And basically then, how do you then keep that sustaining? And maybe that's at the point where you identify maybe a key person who will be responsible at an executive level to make sure that continues and cascades throughout the organization.
Yeah. Just because, see, like I say, with the COMA program initially, it's targeted more to the SME.
Correct.
And like you said earlier, their greatest challenge is resource.
Yes.
Also, it means that one person will most likely have multiple roles.
Yes, absolutely.
And what we're saying is that easing in the process is to help the founder understand why they need somebody who does nothing else, but make sure that operations are documented,
absolutely,
are adhered to, and the rest. And that then allows us to move them to the next level gently.
Yes.
Yeah. So one other thing we're doing at SCVI now is we want to stop prescription business and go into inpatient regime management. Yes.
We're talking outpatient.
No, I think and I believe that's what you said.
Yeah.
Because somebody comes to class, goes back to the office, finds an entry,
yes,
which is higher than they left it. So the first thing you do is what? Go back to the system
Absolutely.
And start going through your pile. Then you're back in. You're not getting out.
Yes.
So how do we get you out? And together with, I think we did something called GAS, where we sent in literally a full EXCO. We give you a full EXCO that comes in to implement. So we want to go to the next level now and do a 9-month intervention. We're starting with schools.
Yes.
So we've called it FORGE.
Okay. Another acronym.
Yes, FORGEE.
Okay.
Well, the idea is to start with SMEs that we've trained, both in COMA.
Yes.
And not so that we see how, because we're really trying to help them. That what you've just talked about through the session is how do we help you really start putting things in place? Because one of the challenges is, for example, if you have a founder who's been doing the business for 20 years, so maybe they started in 2000, now we're in 2025, and you're trying to tell them to change what they've known for 20 years, it becomes a problem because they don't see why. It's been working 20 years. My business has grown. And then you have that pushback. Which we've seen ourselves, where we went to a certain school and the founder there could not see the need of why we are there. So I guess part of that is also trying to take it slowly.
Yes.
Because it can't also be drastic, especially for the older founders, especially if it's a family business, meaning they want the children to go in at some point. And the children sometimes are saying no because it's too chaotic in there. There's no way I'm coming in there.
You've been very generous today.
I understand. It's interesting because in this cohort, we actually had that dynamic. So in this case, the founder had actually sent his daughter, who actually her role is COO. And she was quite vocal and, in terms of really wanting to have this way of doing things implemented within the organization. So the first part obviously is that she's going to work on her data. She has she put it. But the reason even why she even accepted the role is on the understanding that her dad will allow her to implement some of the things that she
wants to implement.
She wants to implement.
Yes.
So it's part of the succession planning. So that's part of the situation. And in fact, one of the topics that we cover in the Operation Excellence is change management. Because a lot of what is required in implementing these operational excellence principles is changing how you do things. And how do you manage change issues? And we sort of give it very high level in terms of why people even, what is change management? It is basically when people don't want to change, and it's basically for three reasons. I don't get it. Why do I have to change? I don't like the change.
Yeah.
And the third part is I don't like you, the person, the messenger, the person who's the messenger. It's so in many cases it's not even so much about the change. It's trying to understand the foundation or the root cause of why are people being resistant to change. And when you approach it from those three levels, then you start seeing and you address it and you start implementing those changes. Again, it goes back to what I started out by saying. It's a process, it's a discipline, it's a way of doing things. And managing change is a continuous process because you'll start changing one area, it affects one group of people,
yes.
And the way they respond to it is different from, say, in another department. And that becomes a continuous way of doing things.
I mean, when you speak about change, there's Kenya National Bureau of Statistics tend to do analysis of crime in the country. And what they've been noticing is theft by servant is really increasing. Now, the founders don't want to put in processes. The change fear is that. Yes. How do I start putting processes because I'm afraid of theft by servant? So I guess my question is, how can we say that operations excellence helps them also sort that out? Because one of the fear of that change is dealing with that animal.
That's a very good point. And we had somebody in the room ask that same question, is how do we address issues of theft within the organization? And that approach is a bury your head in the sand approach. That's really what it is. You do not want
to deal with the issue.
To deal with the issue. That's really what it is. And again, it goes back to that issue of why you being resistant to that. Is it because you're afraid of what? And in many cases, you already know something is happening.
The reason is because you're stealing from your business.
Well, that's one aspect of it.
So if you put it as process, then it starts by first of all dealing with
who's stealing from the business.
The owner is stealing.
Is that stealing?
It's theft,
yes. He just takes. He says it's his money.
No, it is not his money, like we said.
Remember, that's the reason why we're saying we need to separate yourself. The business owner needs to separate themselves from the business. So if the employees are required to follow a specific process to get money, why should you be exempt from it? And that's the mindset that we're trying to say we need to shift, that I, as the owner of the business, I am under the same rules and regulations as my employees. Because this business, in order for it to support us, needs to be nurtured. And part of the nurturing process is ensuring that we feed it, so to speak, And so the example that we had in this case is that, again, this was a different person. This was not the business they're in. They were giving an example of a side hustle they were running. So it was a cosmetics shop in town. And, part of that process is she has a till number to say we are cashless.
Yes.
But she started noticing at some point that her sales were going down because she's not there. She's elsewhere. And over time, she found out through one of her friends who happened to have gone to shop there, was given a different till number because the one that was posted she was told does not work and to use an alternative.
Tuma kwa hii namba ingine.
So, that's theft by servant, yes. But the process, so what was her process to actually evaluate what her sales? By the time she was noticing things were going south, it had been going on for quite a while. So if you're working on the business daily and you're getting, and the number you see a dip, and you want to interrogate.
Yes.
Why is there a dip? You know, she waited months, and by that time it was too late. She ended up closing the business. I was frustrated and just said, it's just not worth it.
That's why it's called a side hustle.
Exactly.
It's a hustle.
But that's just an example of a process, you know, in terms of being able to get, by having processes give you signals, you know, early warning system, so to speak, depending on, you know, customer complaints.
Yes.
You know, if you have a complaint management system where you are logging in the complaints and you're looking at them, if you're receiving complaints and you analyze and they're all coming from one specific person, you could just be looking and saying we have 10 complaints, but if you're not doing the analysis where they're coming from or trying to understand what they are, you'll never be able to act on them. So processes just give you a very independent view of your business and how you're doing things.
Your theft by servant, that's what I'm saying, includes the founder, because he's supposed to be or she's supposed to be able to wear the independent hats. Them as shareholders, them as directors, and them as employees.
Yes.
So if the employee is stealing, even though this person at other times is the founder and at other times is the shareholder, then really this is theft by servant. You as a servant are stealing from yourself. And to me, that's the key challenge we need to get clear. It's not your money. It's the business's money. And this morning, as I was preparing, I realized maybe the challenge of a family business is you don't bring on board all the family. I was thinking, even if you have children who are 10, 15, imagine if you paid dividend to all the family members. Yes, you're married, two of you are running a business. You have children who are, imagine if every end of year, the kids received a dividend from the business and it's explained to them where the money is coming from. And initially it could go into an account so that by the time the child is hitting either 16 or 18, now they're being told you have access to, this is the money that the business has paid you as a shareholder. So the child now goes into adulthood knowing I have a stake in this business. And then that whole thing we saw with some people where they say the business took my parents away. You know, now you start blaming the business, which is why you don't want anything to do with that business. We have kids who told their parents, that's our destitute sibling. Yes. Took all your time.
Yes.
Took all the resources and still wants more. I don't want that. And some of these little things play a major part. Pay yourself a salary. That's what we keep telling our students. And they tell you mean I need to pay myself? Yes, you're an employee.
But you see that mind shift in terms of that the business can actually pay you.
Yes, or should pay you.
Or should pay, yeah.
Yes.
Should, in fact, that's what should pay you.
It should pay you.
So that's a shift of
that we need to.
And in order for that to happen,
yes,
you need to have systems and processes that will allow
you to pay yourself.
You to be able to pay yourself.
Because
and not just dip into the...
As you always do. And you see, if you're dipping, then your staff are dipping.
Exactly.
So in other words, then you're busy blaming the other staff
is?
members for theft by servant, forgetting the biggest theft by servant. The biggest servant.
Okay. Final question of the episode. We've focused more on the majority, which is people who don't have the operations put in place, but there's also a minority that has. Now, for the ones that do have, what should they do now in terms of processes? Should they improve their processes? How should they get the best out of what they have as we conclude the episode?
Okay, that's a good question as well. So part of the course content we cover is the ways you can improve. And in that particular example, it's optimizing. You know, how do you optimize what is already working? You
have to define optimization. There are some people who don't know what that is.
That's good. Further improve.
Okay.
So in the first case, what we're really talking about is let's just have the processes fast. Let's put them in.
Yeah.
And there's a way of how you do that. But then now that you have them in place, what's next? Let's improve them. And it's a continuous improvement process. That's really what optimization means in very simple terms. And how you improve, again, it is showing what is the process and the discipline to be able to do that. The data that you're collecting.
The feedback
that you're getting. The different types of data that you're getting. And that's now when you can even start now looking at more sophisticated tools, technology. So now you can start saying that, okay, what other tools can I use beyond this? the buzzword right now is AI, but AI can only work where you have data in the first place. Yeah. So if you're already in that example where you already have working processes and they're giving you data, and so the magnitude of the data is likely going to be much larger than, say, someone who's probably just starting out. So that's now where you have an opportunity to actually use technology to be able to do that. It's an investment. So then that now allows you to start now looking at what are the different tools you can utilize. And the example that you've talked about, sometimes if you're thinking about, say, partnering with other organizations, you now maybe want to cash out, bring in other shareholders, other investors. Those are questions you're now going to be asked as the owner of the business. So you're going to start putting in more sophisticated systems to be able to demonstrate that you can have these continuous improvements now operate at a much higher level to accommodate more resources within the organization. And that's a completely different level to be playing at.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. Lovely episode on Operations Excellence, where we've really focused on demystifying what Operation Excellence is, taking in mind, it starts with the mindset and then looking at it also as a discipline, so that the founders who listen to the episode can really start thinking through how they can start implementing, and for those who have, to start improving and optimizing. As we conclude, any last words?
Yeah, I think just key points to keep in mind is that Operation Excellence basically means doing the right things well and doing things well. That's really what it means in a nutshell. So being effective and being efficient at the end of the day. And that responsibility is a leadership responsibility. It cannot be left. It's to your staff to be able to just do it on their own. So as the founder, CEO, or leader, it is your responsibility to inculcate that culture and discipline of doing things the right way.
The right way. Thank you. As we go, my name is Edwin Obonyo, PhD, Strathmore Centre for Value Investing. This has been SME Unleashed, the episode focused on Operations Excellence.
Robert Yahweh from Strathmore University.
And Anthony Kibe, operational practitioner, and a pleasure and happy to be here.
See you next episode.